So, as the Formula One logo reforms itself, something that Formula One does every fortnight with great success, it means that there's 5 minutes to go to the start of the Austrian Grand Prix of 1999. Very handy little circuit this. It's very different, as you heard from Jim Rosenthal earlier on, from the old Österreich ring. This has been renamed the A1 ring. But a lot of the features of the old one are still here as you look down on it. See the first corner, the right-hander, which leads up to that one, and the top left corner, which is called the Remus curve. And then just to the right of that figure 1 at the top is the reformulated Bosch curve, which they now call the Gerser curve, and so on back again. Now, the fastest lap we've ever had here was David Coulthard at some 132 miles an hour. But it's a course, Martin, as you well know, that it can be a real car breaker. And we've had a lot of people go off in practicing and qualifying. Fisichella has been off 11 times this week, and I think Damon has been off about 8. I've seen him go off 8. So the people who finished today are going to do well.
What we've seen is drivers that are able to stay on the racing line have been fine, but as soon as they put almost half a tyre over onto the grey area, they're just sliding straight off the road and through the grass. There's really no margin for error whatsoever. And about an hour ago, I drove an old-timer Mercedes around here, and it just reminded me again just how tight that last corner is, where so many cars have been sliding off the road. It's quite a difficult racetrack. There's no big corners to really test the men from the boys, but you have to be very precise on it. It's the 3rd highest average speed of the year. Overall, it's a fast circuit, not because of ultimate top speed, but because there's a lot of straights and fairly simple corners. It's not the most challenging circuit in the world. The old one used to be just absolutely sensational that I used to race on. I've never raced on this one, and I have to say I don't miss it much. What it tends to do, though, Murray, is give us a good Grand Prix, especially as it's a slow corner into the pit straight, and the cars are able to follow each other without this dreaded understeer that puts them wide on the faster corners.
Certainly gave us a cracker last year with McLaren doing the double, Mika Häkkinen winning from David Coulthard by 5 seconds. Michael Schumacher storming his way up through the field from last after he'd gone off. David Coulthard storming his way up through the field from last to finish second, and he actually led part of the way after he'd had a collision at the beginning of the race. So there's always an exciting race at the A1 ring in Austria, and I don't expect this one to be any exception.
Zanardi there in 14th place, you just saw on your screen. He's the only car in the field on the hard tyres, which is a very strange decision, to say the least. And they're even trying iron brakes on it. Poor old Alessandro is just not able to hook that Williams up. And to compound it, Ralf Schumacher in the sister car doing such a brilliant job so far this year.
Yeah, Zanardi, the double champion of America, was 22nd and last in the warm-up this morning. And as you've heard, he's starting 14th on the grid. But the Supertech engine that is in the Benetton, amongst other teams, and in the Williams, is going extremely well here. Fisichella was by far the fastest on the straight in the Benetton yesterday, faster than the McLarens, faster than the Ferraris, probably because he has very little downforce, very small rear wing.
That right-hand side of the grid is very much here off the racing line. And I know Coulthard got together with Frentzen. They're 2nd and 4th on the grid, therefore starting on the right of the grid. And every time they came out of the last corner, they swept across and running over the grid hatches down that side to try and lift some of the dust off. And I just stood on David's start grid slot, and it's actually reasonably clean and quite a lot of rubber down from starts from other races. So they are going to be hampered a little bit on the inside, but maybe not quite as much as it could have been if they hadn't done a bit of work on it. But Coulthard going well, Frentzen going well just behind him, 2nd and 4th, and Johnny Herbert having a fantastic weekend. Just spoke to him on the grid and said, well, you're really hooked up, Johnny. Why is it going so much better? And he said, they've changed something in the back of the car, and I'm just happier driving the car. And I said, well, what, is it geometry or something? He said, I can't tell you, but it really helped me a lot.
And Neil Ressler, the top man of Ford on the competition side worldwide, is here to see Barrichello, who's starting 4th, Herbert, who is starting 5th, as we ride with the Benetton.
I think they're all away.
And we're going up to the first corner, round Castrol Curve. Now, there's quite a bit of gradient. If you walk round this track, you know all about it. We're at the highest point here, seeing Mika Häkkinen, followed by David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine, and the yellow car is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who we are riding with now. And there's a lot of cars gone off there. That's where Schumacher and Coulthard collided in the past. Along the top straight, back again with Fisichella in the Benetton. It's Alexander Wurz chasing Ralf Schumacher's car, chasing in a fairly pedestrian way by Formula One standards, because this, of course, is not the race. This is the formation lap as they go round the left-hander at the Lauda curve, and then the renamed Gerhard Berger curve, which used to be called the Powerhouse curves. They seem to change the names on these corners every year here. And then the course starts to climb again up towards the Jochen Rindt curve. You saw heard Martin talking us round it earlier. Pretty tricky corner.
Yes, they changed the names because a lot of these are commercial names, sponsored corners, and obviously as the sponsors drop out, the names change, which is sort of a little bit too commercial for my liking. But that's a sort of a decent area of the track that are in now, as you just said, Murray, the Jochen Rindt curve. Cars are coming through there very, very fast, all loaded at about 150 miles an hour, and then they face this downhill, off camber, small last corner, and that's where they're just getting all out of shape on the way in, and nowhere to go on the exit, and a key corner in the race, no doubt about it.
So, up front, we've got three fast starters. Mika Häkkinen, pole position in the McLaren. David Coulthard, fast starter, second in the McLaren. Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari, and Irvine on the clean side of the track aims to get past David Coulthard before the first corner, improve his position, track position, one place. Whether or not he'll be able to do it, we'll know pretty soon.
You saw Mika peering over the right side of his cockpit. He's looking for that yellow line to park his front wheel on it. I did some practice pit stops in the Jordan on Wednesday, and I couldn't believe how difficult it was to look out of the car and even see that yellow line. So it is quite difficult to park your car accurately on the grid, mainly because you're looking at the top of a bathtub.
All clear. Watch the lights, top left corner of your screen. Mika Häkkinen is in pole position. They come on one at a time, and they all go out, and it is go! Good one for Mika Häkkinen. Eddie Irvine's got away well, but he's still behind Coulthard, and Coulthard is still in that second position. Frentzen is coming up. One of the stewards has moved ahead of Frentzen. It looks like Rubens Barrichello. Are they all round that first corner safely? Yes.
Yes, I think one of the Benettons ran into, or Lacey ran into the back of one of the Benettons. A little bit of carbon fibre flying around off of a front, probably an end fence of a front wing. Oh, Coulthard and Häkkinen touch.
Great start by Rubens Barrichello, and off goes the McLaren. Off goes the McLaren. Mika Häkkinen. Mika Häkkinen is off the track, nudged together with David Coulthard, and he's going to have to storm his way through the field. And Rubens Barrichello is right up with David Coulthard. The Stewart and the McLaren are battling for the lead. Remember what I said about Austria being a dramatic race always. There's drama here already. Here's the replay as they turn in for turn 2.
Yes, Coulthard coming from a long way back and just touches the back of Häkkinen and they both manage to keep the engine running. Everybody after queuing up behind. Häkkinen off backwards with the engine running, and Coulthard coming from a long way back. Then I saw a rear wing coming into the view of somebody else.
And Barrichello took the advantage and dived through inside Eddie Irvine. And look at the gap between Frentzen in 4th position and the second Ferrari of Mika Salo has gained 2 places already. So it's Coulthard, Barrichello in the Stewart, Irvine, then Frentzen, now the Ferrari of Mika Salo up 2 places. Jacques Villeneuve has come up through the field, and already they're sorting each other out as they come up to turn 1 for the second time.
Johnny Herbert's rear wing I saw coming into view as we just cut away from the 2 McLarens touching. Herbert in the pits, minus rear wing. That's a long job to fix that.
Yet again, it's the bad luck in the Stewart team, and any team that poor Johnny Herbert drives for, he seems to get the bad luck. As Norbert Haug, the Mercedes team boss, looks at his monitor.
That's Herbert's car you can see in the pits, but the rear wings, it's so complicated how they're fixed on the car. Häkkinen is in the race still. He's in last position.
And you see Ralph Schumacher storming through the field. Now look at the leaders there. David Coulthard is stretching his lead between Barrichello and Irvine. Irvine is seeing the leader, David Coulthard, get away from him, and he's eager to get past Rubens Barrichello. Frentzen in 4th position. There's Mika Salo. Behind him is Jacques Villeneuve, and 7th is Ralph Schumacher.
Right, front wing hanging off of Salo's Ferrari. Look, he's had a touch. He's not coming in the pit lane this time round, but we see his mechanics waiting for him. Salo carrying on, but he'll have terrible understeer. The load that normally goes through the front wing mountings into the tyres is just not happening for Salo, and bits and pieces flying off everywhere.
And so that means that Heinz-Harald Frentzen will move up, the Villeneuve will move up a place. See, there is Frentzen in 4th place. And Salo is bound to be coming in, and Eddie Irvine now is right in the wheel tracks of Rubens Barrichello. We're on lap 3 in this 71-lap race, and Rubens Barrichello, who drove so brilliantly in Brazil to lead for 26 laps, is challenging. But there's a gap of 2.6 seconds between him and the McLaren of David Coulthard.
Yeah, Salo is so far away from a pit stop window, of course, being so early in the race. He may as well come in. I mean, he's hanging on to the back of that Stewart reasonably, but sooner or later he's going to lose that front aerofoil, and if it goes underneath your tyre just as you're braking, it can give you more than a few headaches.
Well, you're wondering what's happening to Häkkinen. He is in 20th place. He's lapping in 1 minute 16 compared with 1 minute 15.3 of David Coulthard. But Mika Häkkinen has got a gigantic job to do. He's got to fight his way past.
Salo in the pit. Salo making that pit stop for the new nose. He had to do it. No question about it. His front tyres will be trashed. He'll be going back through the field. He may as well stop now and take the advantage of the new front wing. Salo in, takes about 18, 19 seconds, Murray, to change that.
Yes, this is one of the things they practice all the time. They've got it already there. They're changing tyres at the same time. You see, changing the right front.
Well, of course, they used the front wing look to lift the car up, so they had to get the mechanics in to manually lift the car to change the nose. Ross Brawn says it's okay, let him go.
So out of the pit lane comes Mika Salo from that position he was in before. He is now, of course, last. Everybody is streamed through. They're on their 4th lap, and you're watching Ralph Schumacher in 6th position in the Supertech engined Williams, which has been changed a lot even since the British Grand Prix when it went so much better. And he's on the tail of Jacques Villeneuve. And there is the McLaren storming David Coulthard, race leader, by far the fastest man on the track, and he's now leading Barrichello by 4 seconds.
Yes, Coulthard enjoying leading this Grand Prix. I'm not quite so sure he'll be enjoying his meeting with Ron Dennis when the race is over. Wouldn't want to be his manager.
Yes, because it's always difficult to ascribe blame, but it was David Coulthard coming up the inside of Mika Häkkinen and hitting Mika's rear wheel that took the lead McLaren, the World Championship leader. And if Mika Häkkinen does not score points in this race, one man is going to be delighted, and that's Michael Schumacher, of course, who's watching this race in his home in Geneva.
Häkkinen already up to 16th, Murray. Häkkinen steaming through. Remember, Coulthard started last year and came steaming through the field. Häkkinen's car is more than fast enough.
Yes, and he's more than capable of taking him. He's already gone past Panis, Genet and Zanardi. He'll be past Takagi very quickly, and De La Rosa, and then up with Damon Hill, who is 13th. So there is Mika Häkkinen behind Takagi and De La Rosa, who are 14th and 15th respectively. So Mika Häkkinen, world champion, car number 1, the McLaren, slicing his way through the field, and David Coulthard is taking advantage of this. He's put up another fastest lap, and he leads now by 5.3 seconds. Watch Mika Häkkinen coming up behind the engined Arrows. Only 2 teams have their own engines, Ferrari and Arrows. And over down towards the Jochen Rindt curve comes Mika Häkkinen. Now, is Takagi going to let him through?
I think Häkkinen will have more than enough speed, I think, down this pit straight, and he gets a good exit. So he should come up the inside now, up into turn 1. Simple mathematics, Häkkinen needs to take a car every 2 laps. He'll have to take a dive up the inside. And isn't that surprising?
Yeah.
He just hadn't got the speed when it came to it.
And nor did Takagi move over. Why should he? He's fighting for track position like everybody else in this race. And meantime, David Coulthard is yet another second ahead of Rubens Barrichello. on lap 6. He's 6 seconds, 6.4 seconds ahead of the Stewart. So Coulthard is pulling away at the rate of a second a lap. And even if Häkkinen does get through the field, he's going to have to really fly to catch his teammate. Remind you, no team orders. There is Badoer, and he's about to be lapped already by David Coulthard.
Yes, I think Badoer has probably been in the pit. I saw him sailing off the track in the background of one of the pictures, so I think that's why Coulthard's coming up on him so quickly. He's about to be lapped, and he should just pull out of the way. Yes, he does. And
he does. Luca Badoer, who's the Ferrari test driver, some people thought he would get the Ferrari drive instead of Mika Salo, but Jean Todt, the Ferrari boss, said Salo will be better under pressure than Badoer.
Johnny Herbert back in the race 4 laps down. That's how long it takes, because it's mounted on the gearbox very rigidly. A lot of load goes through the rear wing of a Formula 1 car. They can't just throw them on. It's different to the front wing. The front wing is mounted to the nose box, and it's very easy to replace that. The rear wing is far more complicated to change. And Häkkinen has taken the 2 arrows, look, Murray.
Yeah, and you saw Damon Hill, who's got Mika Häkkinen behind him now. And Damon Hill has dropped from 11th on the grid to 13th in the race as a result of that Schmozzle at the beginning of it. And he'll see Mika Häkkinen in his mirrors. Is he going to move over and let him through? I think not. But on lap 7, which is 1/10 race distance, David Coulthard leads by 7 seconds. Rubens Barrichello has got Eddie Irvine behind him, right behind him, 4/10 of a second behind him. Frentzen is 4th. Villeneuve in the BAR is 5th. And he has yet to finish a Grand Prix in 1999. Ralf Schumacher is 6th, Deniz is 7th, Fisichella is 9th, 8th, Zonta is 9th, and Alex Wurz is in 10th position. So here come Barrichello 2nd, Irvine 3rd, Heinz-Harald 4th. Look at the gap and you see Jacques Villeneuve, and there is Häkkinen battling against Damon Hill for 13th place.
Yeah, he's got slipstream too. Has he got enough speed to come up the inside of Damon? Is Damon going to block the line? No, he's not, but Mika didn't want to have a stab. Mika doesn't appear to be able to brake so late into turn 1, so he must be taking them somewhere else. We haven't seen it happen, but it might well be. There's a left-hand sweeper now into 2. He's got tremendous slipstream, and he's going to take it now, surely. Yes, he's going to get past Damon.
Well, there is an indication of the comparative performances of the McLaren Mercedes, the Jordan Mugen Honda, Mika Häkkinen and Damon Hill. And Mika Häkkinen's next target is Jarno Trulli in the blue Prost as we join race leader David Coulthard on lap 8 out of 81 now, 7. He's keeping up this momentum and pulling away at the rate of a second a lap. And by the time Mika Häkkinen gets through, he's up to 12th position now. David Coulthard stands a chance of being about 15 seconds ahead of him. James Allen, what's the news from...
Well, Murray, we said at the top of the show, the ITV computer showed that it's quite possible for a car at the front of the grid to put on a 2-stop fuel load, which is a lighter fuel load than a 1-stopper, and run away with it. We saw Mika Häkkinen do that, of course, in Imola. He messed it up by driving into a wall, and I had a hunch that one of the McLarens would do it, and now I'm pretty sure that's what David Coulthard is doing. If I'm right, he'll come in around lap 23 or 24. Watch out.
Well, the interesting thing to me in this race so far, apart from the collision between Coulthard and Rubens Barrichello, is the fact that Eddie Irvine, that's Ralf Schumacher off the track from 6th position and out of the race. He's not going to get out of that. Now the question is, will they have to bring out the safety car to get that Williams off the track?
There should be a crane in there somewhere, Murray. That cost Mika Häkkinen the chance to overtake the Prost of Panis, because he was all set up to overtake him, and then wisely saw the yellow flags for Schumacher's spin. That's the first mistake we've really seen from Ralf. Ralf coming, look, up the inside of Deniz, brakes too late, gets out of shape, locks the rear wheels under braking, trying not to run into that BAR, jumps on the throttle pedal, then jumps on the brake, look, and I suspect, then he's just got one wheel sitting in the dirt, no way to find any kind of drive to get it back on the road. First real, and here's Häkkinen having another go.
Jarno Trulli for now 12th position, and David Coulthard's leading by 9 seconds on lap 9. Now, I was saying, the interesting thing to me in this race is the fact that Eddie Irvine in third position quite clearly cannot do anything at all about Rubens Barrichello in the Stewart. That Stewart has got a new Series 3 Ford V10 racing engine in it, and is it going?
Here's Häkkänen's space, look, but the yellow flags are waving, so Mika can't go through now. That's costing Häkkinen dearly. As I said, he needs a car every 2 laps, really, minimum. And that's 2 laps he's had to give away, and that yellow flag's hurting him. But of course, he did make a position with Ralph out of the race.
Now, meantime, Pedro Diniz is in 6th position, a superb 6th position in the Sauber, behind Jacques Villeneuve. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 4th place in the Jordan. Eddie Irvine is still battling against Rubens Barrichello unsuccessfully. In fact, Barrichello is easing away at about 1/10 of a second a lap. And here they are. There is the leader. There is Barrichello. Behind him in the red Ferrari is Eddie Irvine, 2nd and 3rd.
I don't think Coulthard's on a 2-stopper. You may be right, James, but I don't think so. I think we're just seeing the superiority of the McLaren around this circuit.
Well, we'll know, because I would expect them to start coming in roundabout at the very earliest, lap 23 for a 2-stopper. We're on lap 11 now. 1 stop will be roundabout lap 35. As we look at Mika Häkkinen, in front of the yellow Jordan, still behind Jarno Trulli, and this is lap 11.
Here's Häkkinen's place. Look, here he goes at the inside. Trulli doesn't fight too hard. That's where Häkkinen's got the advantage. Nowhere else on the circuit, but he's really making it pay. Now they've cleared Ralf Schumacher's Williams out of the way. Mika can start proceeding through the field again.
Quite lucky, Martin, that that rear suspension of Mika Häkkinen's car wasn't damaged when David Coulthard drove into it.
Well, it was only a little loving kiss between 2 teammates, but it certainly had a bad effect on Häkkinen's balance into that corner, of course.
And obviously didn't affect David Coulthard. There he is, all alone on the track. Now 10 seconds on lap 11, and here's a replay of the start.
Yes, both McLarens got away beautifully, and Coulthard really looking like he could have a go up the inside of Häkkinen into turn 1. Irvine away well too, menacingly, trying to go around the outside of Coulthard, doesn't make it, and there was a little bit of mayhem behind them. You'll see some carbon fibre flicking up in the air any moment now. And this is turn 2, look, and well, I've got to say, David was a little bit out of order on that. He really was coming from too far back, and I think it would be fair enough for Mika to not have expected David to come up the inside there. But both McLarens getting away with it. And there's the rear wing of Johnny Herbert just coming into view. Look, just in front of Mika Häkkinen's recovering McLaren. Now it's spinning round. Somebody ran into the back of Herbert and took off his rear wing. He is so unlucky. Here we go. Who is it? It's Salo, of course, because it's his front wing that got broken. Salo not noticing there's a bit of a shunting of the cars as they're all waiting for Coulthard to recover from touching Häkkinen. Salo running into the back of Herbert.
And Häkkinen just has to sit there helplessly and let them all stream through. Mika Salo, by the way, is not doing the same thing as Mika Häkkinen and streaming through the field. He's in 19th position. He hasn't made up any places since he came back. We'll be back shortly. We're going for a break. Austrian Grand Prix. And there is Heinz-Harald Frentzen still in 4th position as we join him as he goes into his 15th lap. That's Rubens Barrichello second. Eddie Irvine, you can see the gaps between them, and Irvine is pulling away from Frentzen, but he is also losing ground to Rubens Barrichello. David Coulthard's leading by over 12 seconds now.
Here's Hakkinen having a go at the back of Lacey. Down the outside of Lacey's positioned his car nicely, and Hakkinen can do nothing about it except trying to get a better run out of the corner. But Lacey a little bit too wise for that. Coulthard the fastest man on the track, but then Barrichello in second place, really putting in some good lap times. And moving, as you say, Murray, moving away. And this is Lacey now coming into Zonta. So Zonta quite slow into that corner, actually.
Yeah, Zonta was 8th, is now 9th. So Mika Häkkinen has got a real chance now to get up into the points. If he can get past Zonta and then get past Lacey, he'll be able to close on Fisichella, who is in 7th place, and then Jacques Villeneuve, who is in 6th position. Now, Jacques Villeneuve's last lap was 1 minute 15.6. And Häkkinen is lapping almost 1 second faster than that.
I think Zonta might be an easy touch for Häkkinen. Then his afternoon's work really begins. He then starts moving on. Fisichella, he may be able to get him. Then Villeneuve and co, they're going to be tough to get right into that top 6.
And watch Häkkinen coming through now. This is turn 1. He's inside Zonta. He's past the Brazilian. Holds the slide on the McLaren, climbs up towards turn 2, and he's now in 9th place.
Zonta making out he's going to have a go there, getting in Häkkinen's slipstream. Hope he doesn't miss his braking point and slide into the back of him, but Häkkinen much quicker. Zonta appears to me to be fading away a bit, maybe some kind of car problem. And Häkkinen, look at the speed in which he's pulling away from the BAR of Zonta. Now, who's Häkkinen looking at next? John Lacey's had one nibble at him. Lacey now held up behind Fisichella, look. So we're looking at some good scrapping as Häkkinen makes his way through.
Yeah, now, John Lacey started quite well down the field. He was only in 17th place. He had a bad setup in qualifying for the Sauber, and he rued the day because he was 5th fastest in the warm-up this morning, and Pedro Diniz, his teammate, was 4th fastest. By the way, Pedro Diniz is still 5th in this race. The Sauber is going extremely well here. It's well set up for the race. It has a Ferrari engine in it, although it's called a Petronas, and Lacey is an ex-Ferrari driver. He's not going to be at all easy for Mika Häkkinen to pass. And Lacey is 8th, Häkkinen is 9th, not far off that World Championship point scoring situation. There is the race leader, was Coulthard. Here is Rubens Barrichello. There is Eddie Irvine. The gap between Irvine and Barrichello is 3.7 seconds. There is something not right with the Ferrari, and there's everything is right with the Stewart Ford. Eddie Irvine, as I said earlier on, is upholding the hopes of Ferrari and Italy, and the Michael Schumacher watching this race will not be at all happy.
No, this is Ferrari's worst nightmare here. Michael Schumacher with his leg up in front of the TV, and Eddie Irvine in a less than sparkling 3rd place and falling back. That's the last thing they wanted, and probably the thing they most feared.
And Mika Salo is still down in 19th place. He's the last man on the same lap as David Coulthard, who is now on lap 18, as Mika Häkkinen closes right up on 8th place Jean Lacey, and 7th place Giancarlo Fisichella. So Häkkinen now is just 3 places off that point, and Lacey goes for Fisichella. This is where they collided last year. The Sauber and the Benetton had a coming together at that point last year.
Can't believe they didn't touch, actually. That must have been close, but Häkkinen gets a run on them, but he's got to be careful he doesn't trip over them squabbling, because Lacey is very much on the move.
And he's through.
Yeah, it's a nice move there from Jean. He's slow on the way out, but he's covering the line well. The 2 Saubers working beautifully, and as I said before, now it's when Häkkinen has got his problems, but Lacey past Fisichella. I believe Häkkinen will get Fisichella quite easily.
Yeah, but Lacey is also catching Villeneuve in the BAR, who's in 6th position. Here's a replay. There is Fisichella on the right, Lacey diving through on the inside to take 7th position. Mika Häkkinen, therefore, is now behind the Benetton.
Great example there. You saw the right front disc, brake disc of Fisichella glowing but Alesi's not. Alesi just stroking the brake pedal and just going gently up the inside. Otherwise, it's a big risk of locking your wheel going into that turn 2, as Ralph did, and straight off into the gravel.
And look at the way Jean Alesi is pulling away now from Fisichella and Mika Häkkinen. He's pulling away from Mika Häkkinen, of course, because he's trapped behind Fisichella, and this is his opportunity as they come down to turn 1.
Häkkinen hasn't got enough confidence in there, Murray. Now's his chance, out of 1, of this slightly longer straight into 2, where Häkkinen appears to have more confidence to be last of the late breakers.
Let's watch. This is where Häkkinen has taken places, and he's going to do so again. A nice clean move. Fisichella is obliged to give him the racing line and take great care about not running wide onto the grass, which was what so many people have done. Yet another place for Mika Häkkinen, so it is now just Jean Alesi and Villeneuve to get through into 6th position for a point.
Now there's a couple of guys I wouldn't want to have to pass in a hurry. Alesi and Villeneuve, that's going to be tough. I'm looking forward to... Häkkinen will now cruise straight up on the back of Alesi, I believe, and he's got a bit of clear track ahead of him. We'll now get a feel for the kind of race pace that Mika Häkkinen has. Meanwhile, Coulthard 13 seconds in the lead, putting in fastest lap after fastest lap. But it's Irvine's found some pace now as well. He's now in the 1:13. So Eddie Irvine has hooked his car up as he's got rid of 20 laps worth of fuel. Irvine's clearly more comfortable in that Ferrari.
And we're getting very close to the first stop for 2 stoppers. This is lap 20. I'm expecting them to come in from round about lap 23. David Coulthard that you are looking at leads Barrichello by a massive 13.6 seconds. There is Barrichello. Behind him is Irvine, 3 seconds back. 4th is Heinz Harald Frentzen, a further 8 seconds back. 5th is Deniz, a further 4 seconds back. Alesi is 8 seconds behind Deniz in 6th position. And then it's Villeneuve and Häkkinen. There is Eddie Irvine. Clear track behind him, clear track in front of him.
Yes, Alesi's past Villeneuve somewhere, so Alesi up to 6th. We didn't see it on the screen, but this is Häkkinen having a go at Villeneuve. Look, easy. There's some kind. That's where he passes on to so easily as well in the other BAR. So maybe the BAR beginning to struggle under braking.
Yeah, they've had all sorts of problems, the BAR. I was talking to them just before the race began, and they said every problem that they've had this year is a new one. It's a new car, of course, a new team, and so they're methodically eliminating the problems in the hope of getting a race finish for Jacques Villeneuve. They've only had 2 race finishes in the 8 Grand Prix that we've had so far. One for Ricardo Zonta and the other for Mika Salo, who was deputising for Zonta in the same way that today he is deputising for Ralf Schumacher. And Salo, I don't know what's happened to him. We haven't seen him, but he's still 19th and last, and he can't get past Panis's Prost.
New fastest lap of the race for Mika Häkkinen. Now there was a pit board that said cool, I thought it said cool brakes or something for Mika Häkkinen there hanging over the wall. Now that surprised me a bit. I don't know if there's any kind of damage to the rear of his car that would have... I can't imagine that that contact with Coulthard could in any way affect his rear brake ducts, but it's very strange they should hang that over the wall. Meanwhile, Häkkinen, fastest man on the track, closely followed by Jean Alesi, the man just ahead of him, and Coulthard up front, dropping back into the 14th. He needs to pick his pace up. He doesn't have this race won at all yet.
And Häkkinen's fastest lap was just 0.6 of a second slower than Coulthard's fastest lap last year on the 3-groove front tyres as opposed to the 4-groove. There's Alesi. Here is Häkkinen. Häkkinen 7th, Alesi 6th. So Mika Häkkinen has come through from last and past Salo, Panis, Genet, Zanardi, Takagi, De La Rosa, Damon Hill, Zonta, Trulli, Wurz, Fisichella. Now Jacques Villeneuve is the next target. And into the pits comes Luca Badoer as Damon Hill takes Jacques Villeneuve. The Jordan goes past passes Zonta in the BAR, and look how close Zonta is. His rear wing comes out from underneath Damon Hill's rear, and he's fighting back.
Yeah, both BARs very slow under braking. They've got some kind of maybe a long brake pedal or something. So clearly both BAR drivers, Villeneuve and Zonta, struggling to slow the car down.
Lap 22, race leader, Coulthard, there he is. Jean Alesi is on a quick lap now. the Frenchman is closing on his teammate Pedro Diniz, who is in 5th position. He's lapping 1.1 seconds faster. Jean Alesi is lapping 1 minute 13.6. He's actually the fastest man on the track at the moment. He's faster than Coulthard, he's faster than Barrichello, he's faster than Eddie Irvine. Jean Alesi is very much the man to watch in the Austrian Grand Prix, as we see or saw Eddie Irvine. And where is Johnny Herbert? Well, he is now out of the race with Ralf Schumacher. We've got a couple of retirements. Ralf Schumacher as a result of that spin. Johnny Herbert, Luca Badar is still running. He's 20th out of the 22 starters. And the fastest lap you saw there, Mika Häkkinen, 1 minute 13.068. That is only 0.2 of a second slower than last year's fastest lap. He is really flying.
Yes, and the good news for him is that Alesi in front of him is flying too, so just a 0.2 slower as Alesi, so the pair of them are hauling each other along to catch up the leading bunch. Diniz is next in line, and then they move into the first four. So Häkkinen, as I said before, he's got a bit of clear space now. We can see his true pace, and it's fast.
You're right, Martin, about this race being by no means won by David Coulthard. Barrichello is starting to close on him. Irvine is starting to close on Barrichello. Diniz is closing on Frentzen. Alesi is closing on Diniz. And Mika Häkkinen is reeling them all in. In a few laps' time, it's going to be absolutely massive in Austria. And we're on lap 24, due for the first of the two stoppers to come in very shortly. I didn't see that pit board that went out to either David Coulthard or to Mika Häkkinen. But they're in touch, of course, not only visually, looking at the pit boards as they come out of the last corner, turn 8, the A1 curve, but by radio as well. Now, Mika Häkkinen's got a comparatively clear track at the moment as he tries to reel in Alesi. But Alesi is actually lapping marginally faster than him, and there is the Sauber crew, and I expect it'll be...
I think that explains, Murray, why the Saubers are looking so strong. They're carrying probably 25, 30 kilos less fuel. It's 0.3 of a second per 10 kilos. That means they've got 0.9 in their pocket. And I think that's why they're looking so fast compared to Irvine and co. It's Coulthard up front who's not putting the pace in he should be at the moment. I don't understand it. He lost 0.6 of a second of his lead on the last lap, and he's already slow again on the next. I don't wonder if Coulthard's got some kind of drama. If he hasn't, he needs to be picking his pace up.
Well, if he has got some sort of a drama, with Rubens Barrichello now 12.4 seconds behind him, and Pedro Diniz from 5th position, the first of the two stoppers comes in to the Sauber pit. Up goes the front of the nose, on go the 4 new wheels and tyres. The fuel hose is already in, of course. I was going to say about 10 seconds, and that's exactly what it turned out to be. And coming into the pit lane, I see Takagi, not into the straight, I see Takagi in 15th place, so Diniz has lost a lot of places. Here is the race leader, David Coulthard. McLaren Mercedes, the winner in brilliant style of the British Grand Prix at Silverstone 2 weeks ago. And he's 12 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello, or he was. Let's see where he is on this lap.
Better lap for David there, 13.6. I don't see any traffic around him, so I think he just maybe made a mistake on the previous lap or something, because he appears now to have some pace back again.
Yes, he's gained 0.2 of a second on Barrichello. Up goes his lead to 12.5 seconds. And Eddie Irvine still can't do anything in 3rd position about Rubens Barrichello in the Stewart Ford ahead of him. The Brazilian is 3 seconds ahead of Eddie Irvine. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is still 4th. Then we have Mika Häkkinen in 5th place, who's got ahead of Jean Alesi, and Pedro Diniz in 7th place.
Yeah, Häkkinen will be mighty relieved to see those two going in the pits, because again, I'd be very surprised if Häkkinen's not on a one-stopper, so that helps him enormously.
Out goes Jean Alesi after an 8 second, 8.1 second to be exact, stop. That's Pedro Diniz dropping back onto the wheels. He came in earlier, and you remember his pit stop was 9.9 seconds, and the fuel flap is still up. It will go down when he changes gear into second gear.
Yes, or when he flips off the pit lane limiter. Dodgy pit lane here because it's full speed on the exit. It's a very tight right-hander surrounded by barriers. Looks more like Monaco than Austria as you come out of the pit lane, and you have to be very, very careful up there.
I cannot understand what is happening to Mika Salo in the other Ferrari. I wish we could see him. He's still lumbering along, comparatively speaking, in 19th position. He still hasn't got ahead of Olivier Panis. He's lapping in 1 minute 15.6, which is 2 seconds slower than David Coulthard. There must be, I suspect, something amiss with the Ferrari, and that's Tora Takagi in the arrows, retiring from the Austrian Grand Prix from 15th place.
Yes, well out of harm's way there too, and he's even on a little slip road, look, so they can get, as long as you don't let it roll down the hill too far, they can get that car out of the way quite quickly. He held Coulthard up a little bit, the race leader, had to go around the outside of him as he was coasting. And meanwhile, we're looking at Rubens Barrichello in a strong second place.
And Damon Hill has got to the top 10 in the Jordan. He has yet to stop, of course. And we're leaving Austria for a little while. Be back soon after the break. Towards us behind Luca Badoer and diving out from behind the Minardi race leader David Coulthard on lap 30 out of 71, who has yet to stop, is closing up on Mika Salo's Ferrari to lap the Finn, who is still stuck in 18th position behind the Prost of Olivier Panis.
Yes, remembering of course that Salo's been in the pits for a new front wing after running into the back of Johnny Herbert on the second corner of the race, and Herbert down in effectively last running place because he's 4 laps down after they changed that wing.
And Mika Häkkinen is now not only very much in the points in 5th position, having got ahead of Jacques Villeneuve, but he's just done a lap in 1 minute 12.93, which is just 1/10 of a second slower than the fastest lap last year. You're looking at the man who's leading the World Championship, closing up on Heinz Harald Frentzen. This is a superb drive, just like the one we saw from David Coulthard last year.
Yeah, this is the drive of a true reigning world champion here, and he took a full 1.4 seconds out of Frentzen on the last lap. And we know how well Frentzen is going. Interestingly, the Ferrari pit board is not showing him Irvine the time back to Frentzen, who's behind him in this race. They're showing them the time back to Häkkinen, who's homing in on him at a vast rate of knots.
Yes, Eddie Irvine's problem is going to be to hold on to 4 World Championship points for 3rd position. He can clearly, at the moment, do absolutely nothing about Rubens Barrichello. All the hard work that Cosworth and Ford and Stewart have put into that team in its 3rd year, as you watch Eddie Irvine lock up his tyres, is really paying off in 1999. Stewart is very much a force to be reckoned with in Formula One.
Yes, the 2 McLaren refuelers, and that'll be one of the Benetton men. They wait passively for the scheduled pit stops, probably 38, 39 laps into this race, maybe even as far as 40.
Häkkinen right with Frentzen now, who is in 4th position. So the yellow Jordan 4th, the silver and black McLaren in 5th position. And Frentzen can see the McLaren in his mirrors. And it's getting closer and closer all the time.
Well, if you remember Frentzen at the French Grand Prix, although he went on to win it, he was reasonably passive through the middle part of the race when Häkkinen was coming through and passing him. It'll be interesting to see how much aggression he shows today, because clearly Häkkinen has the faster car. That's Erja Häkkinen, Mika's wife, of course, watching on slightly glumly, but I don't think I'd be that disappointed. There's another 40 laps to go in this race, and their man is storming through the field.
Yes, you watch him, he's going to be right up with Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 4th position as they come to turn 1. Up the climb, Mika Häkkinen has a little look, but he's not going to get through there because Heinz-Harald Frentzen takes the racing line, goes into the apex at the correct point, climbs up towards turn 2. Now this is a good passing point, especially for Mika Häkkinen, who's taken at least 3 people at this very point in the past, but he's not going to take Heinz-Harald Frentzen. And remember how Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari and Ralf Schumacher, his brother, last year in the Jordan, fought for 4th place, and Ralf absolutely refused to yield, particularly at that turn 2. Now we're on lap 32. This is where the one-stoppers will start coming in fairly shortly. I think round about lap 35 out of 71, the one-stoppers will be coming in. So we can expect to see David Coulthard coming in, Rubens Barrichello coming in, Eddie Irvine coming in, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, for that matter, very, very soon. And this is where it's not just down to the driver, the car, the engine and the tyres, it's very much down to the mechanics, the people in the pit lane who are changing the tyres and wheels and refueling the cars. Formula One is a team sport.
Häkkinen trying to distract Frentzen, hoping he'll outbrake himself into turn 1, because for sure he was nowhere near close enough to outbrake him, and he's not close enough either as they head down towards turn 2. Frentzen driving well, not showing any signs of succumbing to the pressure of Häkkinen, who's homed in on him very quickly, and now a little bit of status quo.
Now we're not yet halfway through the race, but at the present moment David Coulthard is closing the World Championship points gap between himself and the leader Mika Häkkinen by 8 points. Mika Häkkinen is on 2 points potentially for 5th place. I don't expect him to stay in 5th place, he's going to move up. David Coulthard is on 10 World Championship points at the moment. And interestingly, in the Constructors' Championship, where Ferrari started this race 2 points ahead of McLaren, McLaren are now very much in the ascendancy because both Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard are in point-scoring positions, and only Eddie Irvine is for Ferrari.
Yes, and this is 5th place man closing down 4th place man Frentzen. Häkkinen versus Frentzen. He's a bit closer this time, but we've seen Häkkinen not really have confidence in here, and he's trying it. Yes, and Frentzen really had to be kinder and let him through. That was brave stuff from Häkkinen. Really good stuff going in there, and Frentzen had to have an accident or give way, and that's exactly what he did.
A terrific bit of bullish driving by Mika Häkkinen, who just forced Frentzen to give way. I think it was brilliant the way Mika Häkkinen managed to recover on the exit to the corner, because many times in the past we've seen the man who does the passing run wide and the man who was passed dive through on the inside.
Oh, I would have been, I bet Häkkinen didn't breathe for about 5 seconds there. He completely put his race in the control of another driver. But I think probably like I said earlier on, maybe he thinks Frenzen's a little bit passive, and that's why he had the confidence to go inside him. Frenzen, an experienced driver, an aware driver, you'd know who you're racing against, and Häkkinen thought, okay, I think he'll move out of the way, and he did.
Well, I said I didn't expect Häkkinen to stay in 5th position. He didn't stay there very long. He's now in 4th place on 3 World Championship points. But now the difference in lap times between Häkkinen, who is 4th, and Irvine, who is 3rd, is 1.1 seconds. Häkkinen is catching the Ferrari at the rate of 1.1 seconds, but it's 17 seconds ahead of him.
Yes, look at that little dot in the distance as we're on board with Heinz-Harald Frentzen. That's Häkkinen who's just passed him. That gives you an idea of the pace of Mika Häkkinen. That's a back marker that Häkkinen's coming up on now. So his next target, his next victim will be Eddie Irvine, 17 seconds down the road. Now these are critical laps for Mika Häkkinen. He needs to clear these back markers quickly.
Absolutely, and we've lost, I haven't mentioned the fact that Rubens Barrichello is closing down the gap between himself and race leader David Coulthard. It was some 13 seconds, it's now 10.3 seconds.
I think Villeneuve's out of the race, Murray. I don't think he's going to score that point you were talking about, because Villeneuve coasting down the pit lane, and that was Irvine's board telling him he's 17.4 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen. Irvine's gently closing down Barrichello in 2nd place.
Yeah, you're right. Villeneuve is down to 12th position, and this looks as though it's going to be his 9th retirement from 9 races for the new team. And Mika Häkkinen now goes faster than anybody went last year. 1 minute 12.7. A very disappointed Jacques Villeneuve walks past Rick Gaughan, one of the top people at Reynard, and not a word is exchanged between the two of them.
Yes, he hasn't, as you've said before, Murray, hasn't seen the end of a motor race this year, and we're a long way into the season, and I think Jacques is going to be more than disappointed again today.
Off comes a tear-off strip from Mika Häkkinen's visor. His vision was obviously getting a bit blurred, and he's ripped off that tear-off. They start with several on the visor in front of them, and there is there is Salo, there is Coulthard. So Salo in the 2nd Ferrari is now 14th, and this is Marc Genet in the Minardi.
Yes, I'm sure Salo will be not maybe verbally under instruction, but probably morally under instruction to not make life any easier than he has to for that McLaren that's about to lap him. But strictly speaking, he should jump out of the way when the blue flags start waving, but let's see if that happens.
Yeah, if they get 3 blue flags, they're in trouble. The blue flag means there's someone faster coming up behind you. Give way to him. And Mika Häkkinen has broken the record yet again. 1 minute 12.6 to the nearest 10th. He's going faster and faster. As Martin said, you are seeing a true world champion at work. Watch him close up on and take Mika Salo as Zanardi retires in the Williams. Well, this has turned out to be a terrible return to Formula 1 1999 for Alex Zanardi.
Yes, you put your hand up like that, but the driver coming up behind can't see you. There's all the monocoques in the way, not to mention the myriad of elements in the rear wing, but you try your best.
His 7th retirement from 9 races. James Allen, what's the news? Hello, James.
Murray, you remember in Australia, the first race we did on ITV in '97, Jean Alesi kept getting pit boards to come in for fuel and tyres. That's what Alex Zanardi's been getting for the last few laps. I think he's run out of fuel.
Well, I mean, there are already rumours that Alex Zanardi's time at Williams is limited, although who he would be replaced by is difficult to say. If that is the case, it will certainly compound it.
Yes, Coulthard just had a terrible lap, a 1:15.6. He's only now got a 7.9 second lead. I suspect it as he passed the blue car in the background there. I don't know which one it is. It's too far away in that last shot, but Coulthard only now with an 8-second lead in his pocket.
And Mika Häkkinen in 4th place is 15 seconds behind Eddie Irvine, and lapping half a second a lap faster than the Ferrari. That's the Stewart team out in the pit lane, ready to receive Rubens Barrichello on his 1 stop. And we're now on lap 38. They've stayed out longer than I expected them to. And here are Eddie Irvine, Mika Salo and David Coulthard, as into the pit lane comes Rubens Barrichello from second position.
Now what Coulthard needs to happen is for Irvine to make a stop too, but Barrichello coming in, a reasonable time that in the race, a good strategy, new set of tyres. This should take just under 8 seconds really, but the fueling is that's a longer stop, and he sort of pulled away and had to. Now the Lollipop man saw the other car coming in and correctly stopped Rubens barrelling out into the pit lane. That's what happened there. You really trust the man on the Lollipop lifting the stick, and that's that Rubens, that did not work out at all well for him.
He's rejoined after Frenson, look, so Frenson's moved up to 4th position. Rubens Barrichello, who came in second, is now down to 5th place. That could very dramatically, adversely affect Rubens Barrichello's race. A 12.5 second pit stop. I would expect Häkkinen and Coulthard to go a lot quicker than that. Häkkinen is continuing to circulate ever faster. He's now 14.5 seconds behind Coulthard, the race leader.
Race leader in the pits, Coulthard in the pit lane. That's a good idea to get him in so that he does not get held up anymore by the Ferrari of Salo. So crucial stop here for Coulthard. All told, when you're on a one-stopper, it takes 22 seconds total time lost. And not bad there, not bad, not great, but not bad for Coulthard. He will just about maintain his lead, mostly because Barrichello had a poor pit stop too.
Yeah, and he was 2 seconds faster than Rubens Barrichello. As there is the Ferrari of Eddie Irvine. And Mika Häkkinen now is up into 3rd position, of course, having got past Heinz Harald Frenson. But Häkkinen has yet to come in. Here he is.
Yes, Häkkinen actually ahead of Coulthard now because he hadn't stopped. So Häkkinen will be rather warily looking in his mirrors, I would think. David having made his pit stop, that means obviously you could clearly see Coulthard's a complete pit stop ahead of Häkkinen, but the pace Häkkinen is showing, he's going to catch David. David really needs to make these fresh tyres work and put on a bit of pace.
Häkkinen leads, Coulthard second, Eddie Irvine in 3rd position. Heinz Harald Frenson is 4th, Barrichello is 5th. Fisichella and Wurz are 6th and 7th. That's Pedro de la Rosa in the arrows. He's beached it well and truly. You can see the rear wheels are clear of the gravel. And the gravel, the flat bottom of the arrows, the mandatory flat bottom, is sitting on the gravel. Now, I can't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to remove that car. Ron Dennis standing with a board tyre on it, and in comes Häkkinen.
That's to show Häkkinen where to turn in roughly to his pit garage. So Häkkinen in from 2nd place on the racetrack. This will put him back out in 3rd place effectively. Irvine yet to stop, of course, and half a second quicker than Coulthard. So Häkkinen still on his way, Murray.
Yeah, nearly a second faster, and Mika Häkkinen, it's a long pit lane here.
Yes, interestingly, Barrichello, of course, whilst he's running line astern there with Herbert a long way behind because of that rear wing change. So Häkkinen has rejoined the racetrack behind Barrichello.
And at the moment, as those pit stops are sorting themselves out, Eddie Irvine, who has yet to stop, and this is lap 41, is leading the race, leading the Austrian Grand Prix. But that pit stop, of course, that he's going to have to make will bring him down behind certainly Coulthard, probably, quite possibly, Mika Häkkinen as well. This is a quite incredible drive by the man you were just watching there, Mika Häkkinen. I remind you that he's come up from that lowly position, stormed his way through the field, and is now right up in the leading edge of the points as we watch race leader Eddie Irvine. Irvine's been lapping quite slower than both the McLarens during this race, and he's not going to be speeding up.
Yeah, he's been getting better and better though as the race is going on, and I think, yes, I can see the Ferrari mechanics out in the pit lane, so maybe Irvine will be in this lap and then we'll see it all shake out. None of the main contenders for this race will stop again, certainly on schedule anyway.
There they are. Now it's all down to them, and Ferrari are very good indeed at the pit stops. They're not allowed to come out of the garage into the pit lane. That is because Salo, incidentally, in the Ferrari as Olivier Panis comes up. He has now got past Panis and is in 12th position coming into the pit lane.
Yes, so not Irvine, it's Salo they're choosing to bring in first. Salo, no chance of a point-scoring run in his first drive for Ferrari because of that front wing change. His first pit stop of the year first pit stop for Ferrari, of course. He has raced earlier this year with BAR, and a good stop there for Ferrari.
Martin, I think I'm going to have to eat my words. You are absolutely right. Eddie Irvine has just done his fastest lap of the race, 1 minute and 13, just a few hundredths of a second faster than he had been before, but nevertheless about 9/10 of a second slower than Mika Häkkinen has been.
Yeah, just to demonstrate the incredible pace that Häkkinen had as he's got the bit between his teeth and charging back through the field. So how's it all going to shake out when Irvine stops? It's going to be Coulthard leading. I would imagine Frentzen hasn't stopped yet, of course, either. So it's going to be Coulthard, Barrichello, Irvine, Frentzen and Häkkinen nip and tuck.
Yeah, and at the present moment, Rubens Barrichello has got the edge on Mika Häkkinen. Then here is David Coulthard. That is the race leader. Or is it Salo looking across the track?
I think it's Salo, isn't it?
It's Salo, yeah, it's Mika Salo. Just a flash of the blue helmet there on lap 43. And they certainly, I was very interested just before the race began. Ferrari had got Eddie Irvine right in the garage until the last possible moment, filling him up with fuel. So obviously theirs is a one-stop strategy and bring him in as late as they possibly can.
Yes, they're going to do 44 laps, but you saw Irvine's pitboard box. It says that's the Italian way of saying come in the pits. So Irvine, we know, is in this lap if he follows instruction.
Well, he'll do that for sure, and he's leading the Austrian Grand Prix by 22 seconds from David Coulthard. It's going to be very close when they come out.
Yes, remember what I said, it costs you about 22 seconds to make a stop here, so Coulthard needs a bit of a spurt on, and he's just not doing that at the moment, so Coulthard's struggling with his pace, and it's going to be fascinating. I still think Coulthard will have track position. Depends on Irvine's in-lap and how quickly he can get up and running again.
Is that Barrichello coming in again? I think I saw the steward coming in there, and he of course has already made his pit stop. If he has, it's Johnny Herbert. Johnny Herbert who's rejoined the track. He's down in 17th position, 4 laps down, and here comes the Ferrari into the pit lane of the race leader Eddie Irvine. Now remember, Mika Häkkinen stopped in 9.6 seconds, David Coulthard in 10.5. James Allen.
Well, it's going to be incredibly close, Murray. 22-25 seconds. It's very, very marginal how much you need here for a pit stop. It's David Coulthard and it's Hightower Frentzen. Nice stop by Ferrari. Is it good enough? Oh, is it good enough?
Well, it's good enough so far.
Yes, it is. Look, Coulthard just coming out of the last corner, Murray, there. Coulthard coming under that bridge. Irvine's got to get out of that tight pit lane. Irvine will lead this race.
He's leading the race, and he's got Salo in front of him. Now, if Irvine can get past Salo, and Salo can hold up the McLaren behind him, we're going to see a storming finish.
Was that Coulthard or Häkkinen that was coming down the straight? So Häkkinen, I'll just reserve judgment on that one until it all shakes out a little bit further out. The McLaren in the distance, I thought, was going to be David Coulthard. Let's have a look.
There's Salo, who's in 14th position. Now we're with Alexander Wurz, who was 6th when he came in, and in the latter stages of the race, the Benettons are coming good, but Wurz will inevitably drop paces. Look at those cars streaming down the pit lane as he rejoins. Now there is Eddie Irvine.
Yeah, Irvine leads this race. Irvine, that strategy, getting Irvine to... That's why he struggled so much at the beginning of the race, Murray. His car was absolutely full of fuel. And going to 44 laps and having some strong laps before he came in. 13.0, 13.1, then a 12.7 just before he came in the pit. It's put Irvine in the lead. Coulthard would be scratching his head on that one, but we said earlier his pace wasn't fast enough.
Lap 46. It looks like another brilliant strategical decision by Ross Brawn of Ferrari. Irvine leads, Coulthard second, Frentzen third, Barrichello fourth, Häkkinen fifth, and Trulli up to 6th place. We can go to a break. Come back soon. 48, and Eddie Irvine is fighting hard against David Coulthard. There's Sarlo. Behind Sarlo is Panis. And here they come down this track towards us. It's Irvine and Coulthard, first and second on lap 48. That's how close it is.
Yes, and let me just explain to you how Irvine ended up in the lead. They filled the car up on the start line, held him up in the beginning. He went to lap 44 of the 71-lap race, and his last 5 or 6 laps were absolutely blinding laps. Very, very fast. So while he was out on the track with low fuel, the tyres are lasting well here, he could really make up some ground. Coulthard, having a poor run through the traffic or whatever, did not do particularly good laps, and that has put Eddie Irvine, given him track position. Now he's chasing Sarlo, who's a lap down because of problems earlier in the race. But Sarlo's lapping at a similar pace.
Suddenly got his act together, Mika Sarlo. 1 minute 14.4, and Irvine lapping in 1 minute 14.5 in the last lap. Well, on the previous lap, Irvine closed up a bit, but Sarlo's got a battle on his hands. He's trying to take 12th position away from Ricardo Zonta. And here is Barrichello in the white Stewart. Behind him in 4th position is Mika Häkkinen. So again, Irvine, Coulthard very close together. Barrichello and Häkkinen 3rd and 4th. You're looking at them now. They're 10 seconds ahead of Frentzen, who is 1 second ahead of Alesi.
Yes, and Sarlo's let Irvine through, look. So that's crucial for Ferrari to have that car at that particular place. Not in the race, effectively, Sarlo, but it's crucial to have him then. He's lifting off, look. He lets Irvine go, but it parks it nicely in front of the McLaren from Ferrari's perspective. And I was just going to say that Barrichello doing twice the work inside the cockpit of his Stewart compared to Häkkinen through that first corner. Häkkinen's car looking great, but he just needs some clear air.
Well, Eddie Irvine's now got to try and get ahead of Zonta, who's in 12th position, then Damon Hill. There's a lot of traffic facing the lead drivers at the present moment, but the problem that David Coulthard has got is that he's got a Ferrari in front of him, which is not Eddie Irvine's, it's that one, Mika Sarlo. Sarlo moved over to let his teammate through. He's certainly not going to move over to let David Coulthard through until potentially he sees the 3rd blue flag, as Rubens Barrichello continues to hold Mika Häkkinen behind him. Häkkinen has a look at turn 1, gets right up on the rear wing of Rubens Barrichello in 3rd place. And I say again, the point that they're coming to is the one that Mika Häkkinen has been so strong at in the past. He's passed at least 4 drivers at this turn 2.
This is crucial. Barrichello going in there a little bit deep. This is crucial for Häkkinen. He's 19 seconds behind Irvine with 22 laps left to go. If he's going to win this race, he needs to clear Barrichello quickly. He's got a good run here. That'll be brave if he goes in there. Barrichello saw him coming, moved out of the way. Häkkinen manages to keep it somehow on line. As I said, crucial move. Mika had to make it stick and get on with the race.
Martin, that's the 2nd time he's made a tremendously brave move. The thing that amazes me is the way he manages to hold it on the exit of the corner.
Yes, well, it's more a quick look how far back he's coming from, and Rubens was, oh wow, that's a great move. That's a brilliant piece of driving from Mika. Fortune favours the brave, and he says, right, I've got to get on. I need maximum points for the World Championship. Got to get on with this, and I'm going to take you now. You know, it's up to you. Take it or leave it. I'm coming through.
And he came through, and he's 19 seconds in 3rd place, 16 seconds now in 3rd place behind Eddie Irvine, lapping on that lap 0.2 of a second slower, and that was Jean Alesi out of the race in the Sauber from 6th position. Oh dear, poor old Jean, he drives brilliantly in race after race. Nobody tries harder or does better in a Sauber than he does, but he's out of the Austrian Grand Prix as Irvine comes towards us. And here's Häkkinen.
No, I think that's Coulthard. Sarlo lifting off and letting Coulthard through. Enough blue flags, I guess. Sarlo had been passed, so that's a key for Coulthard. And look out, it's a quick break. We'll be back shortly.
Häkkinen che transita sul traguardo, queste immagini.
to go before the end of the Austrian Grand Prix, and Eddie Irvine is slightly extending his lead in the Ferrari over David Coulthard. It's now 3.7 seconds. It was 3.3 seconds just a couple of laps ago. But Mika Häkkinen is driving a blinding race, but no faster than Irvine. They're matching each other lap for lap, time for time. Irvine in the Ferrari is as fast as Häkkinen, but Häkkinen is catching Coulthard. Rubens Barrichello has dropped down to 4th place after a brilliant passing manoeuvre by Mika Häkkinen. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Jordan is yet again in the points. There is the race leader, Eddie Irvine. And Pedro Diniz is in 6th position in the Sauber. His teammate Jorna Lacey has retired. Here are the retirements. Ralf Schumacher, the first, then Takagi. Jacques Villeneuve out for the 9th time in 9 races. Zanardi retired, as did De La Rosa. Johnny Herbert is still going round slowly, but is 4 laps down. And there are 15 out of the 22 starters still running.
Well, Ross Brawn said to me on the line, didn't he, that Eddie Irvine hasn't shown his full potential yet. Well, he certainly has now in this race. Coulthard's going to be Mr. Unpopular, I think, tripping over Häkkinen in turn 2 and then not really having a strong pace in the middle of the race. It's allowed Irvine to get track position. And now Coulthard a 1/10 of a second faster on that lap, keeping the under 4 seconds the lead. But somehow now Coulthard's got to just step up a whole new level and go and take this race, because at the moment it's slipping away from him.
What have you got to tell us, James Allen?
Well, I'm down in the Ferrari garage and they're agreeably surprised down here, it's fair to say. They're pointing out, of course, that if Irvine holds on to this, he's going to be just 2 points behind Mika Häkkinen in the World Championship. Fantastic result. We talk about Ross Brawn's brilliant tactical brain, but there's been a bit of luck as well, let's not forget. The two McLarens really shot themselves in the foot with that incident on the first corner. Without that, I think Irvine's job with a full fuel load would have been very much more difficult, particularly because McLaren would have had lots of tactical options. They've had very few today, and of course Ferrari have just played into their hands.
Like I always say, if is for F1 spelt backwards, and it's a very, very long word. And Eddie Irvine, if he's getting the luck, richly deserves it. Here he is, lap 55. He's continuing to extend his lead over Coulthard, but by the same token, Häkkinen is still closing up on the Ferrari. There are 16 laps left. Häkkinen is 14 seconds behind Irvine, and he's lapping a second a lap faster at the moment.
Yes, Coulthard taking 8/10 of a second out of Irvine on that lap. I think there was a back marker came into play, if I remember, and Coulthard doing a 13.8 compared to Irvine's almost a full. Yeah, there's that back marker. Look, I think that's what's slow, but David getting a good run on that back marker. Cost him about half a second. Thanks, Murray. Cost him about half a second, but not as bad as it cost Irvine. So Coulthard now needs to charge and put that Ferrari under pressure.
Well, Eddie Irvine won at Silverstone and Irvine was second. It's the other way round now. Irvine leads, Coulthard second, and David Coulthard has closed the gap to 3.1 seconds on lap 56. What's happening outside the top 6? Well, Fisichella is chasing his teammate Wurz, who is 6th. Pedro Diniz has dropped down from 6th to 8th. Trulli is in 9th position. Damon Hill is just in the top 10, but he's 70 seconds behind Eddie Irvine that you're looking at, the race leader. Zonta is a lap down in 11th place. Salo is behind him, 12th. Panis is 13th. Genet is 14th. Bader is 15th. Johnny Herbert is 4 laps down, still running, 16th position. I said before, my heart goes out to Johnny. I seem to say this in race after race, but he's going extremely well, but 4 laps down after that problem he had at the beginning. And our last, and that is out goes Rubens Barrichello. Oh dear, Rubens Barrichello from a fine 4th position, having been 2nd for so long. That means that Frentzen moves up to 4th, Wurz moves up to 5th, Fisichella moves up to 6th, and there is the story. The new Series 3 Ford V10 in its first race has said that's enough for today in Austria. That's enough for us for a little while. We're going away, but we'll be back for the rest of the race.
Giancarlo, difficile verificarlo. Andiamo a vedere intanto.
È un'uscita pericolosa per lui, e fortunatamente il grande spazio di fuga gli consente di rientrare.
Race on in Austria. Irvine is being caught by Coulthard. There is Irvine. There is Coulthard. The gap is 2 seconds.
Yes, that's Hakkinen actually, and coming up to the back of Salo. Coulthard has definitely picked up his pace, just 2 seconds behind, as you say. And I don't think Eddie's got a particular problem. It's just David's suddenly really pushing the limit and lapping now, quickest man on the racetrack. He needs to do that a little bit earlier in the race, but and a 13.3 now, the gap down to 1.8 seconds. Coulthard realising he's got some repair work to do. He can win this race. He needs to win this race for his World Championship chances, and putting a bit of a spurt on, and hopefully we're going to see him come up behind. We're still watching Hakkinen and Salo. Hopefully we're going to see Coulthard coming up behind Irvine, and they're coming up to some traffic too. I think it's Damon Hill to lap them, so we could well see. So as we left you, Fisichella was just going off the road. He went across the grass and rejoined the track with no particular problems.
In 7th place, Pedro Diniz in 6th position, and Jarno Trulli in 8th place is right up with Fisichella as a result of the Italian going off the track. You're looking at Mika Hakkinen. He's lapping in 1 minute 13.9 compared with Eddie Irvine 1 minute 13.4. Now, while you were away during the break, I was telling our other viewers around the world in Australia, Canada, South Africa, that we've got a fascinating situation in the Constructors' World Championship, because Eddie Irvine is potentially, if he wins this race, scoring 10 World Championship Constructors points for Ferrari. David Coulthard is getting 6 for McLaren and Hakkinen 4.
Right, Coulthard ducks out, Hill lets him through, and the gap is down to 1.5 seconds. So both cars clearing the first traffic, and now you can see Irvine coming up against what will be Jarno Trulli to lap him. So this is where Coulthard needs to be close enough behind Irvine in case he gets tripped up and wrong-footed in a corner with a back marker. He can get a run at him, but he's not close enough yet.
And Eddie Irvine needs to get past Jarno Trulli and put the Prost between himself and the McLaren. Just to finish that last thought, it would mean that in the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari were still leading McLaren by 2 points. But there are still 11 laps to go. 10 laps to go. This is lap 61. It's a 71-lap race. You're watching David Coulthard in the McLaren Mercedes, chasing Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari. There is Fisichella. Behind Fisichella is Jarno Trulli. And so Eddie Irvine is coming up to lap the 8th man, the 7th man. And then hopefully from his point of view, Pedro Diniz. And he could get past Trulli with a bit of luck as they come up to turn 1. No, I don't think so.
As he took a 10th out of Coulthard on that lap. Coulthard having to duck inside hill, of course, up into turn 1 on the previous lap. So nip and tuck, both doing a 1:13.7. Plenty of needle between Irvine and Coulthard recently in the press. Plus, of course, they tripped over each other in Canada. But we're back now again on the Salo-Hakkinen one. Hakkinen in 3rd place, Salo effectively out of play.
Yeah, and Hakkinen is 14 seconds behind Coulthard, 16 seconds behind Irvine, and Zonta goes through and takes the Minardi with the Ferrari tight up, and there is Mika Hakkinen. So we're on the 62nd lap. It's anybody's race between Eddie Irvine and David Coulthard. It may well come down to traffic in the end analysis.
Salo correctly getting out of the way of Hakkinen because he's been lapped, having stopped early in the race for a new nose cone. At the moment, David Coulthard has lost 0.3 of a second to Irvine on this current lap that they're on.
Because he can't get past Jarno Trulli yet, and Eddie Irvine has already done so. Now there is Irvine, Coulthard behind Trulli, who is in 8th place, and so Coulthard now puts a lap between himself and Trulli, but Eddie Irvine has increased the gap to 2.2 seconds.
Yes, absolutely right, Murray. Truly cost Coulthard a full 0.7 of a second there. So now they've got some clear space now, and until Irvine catches that Benetton, and Coulthard has just got to drive out of his skin.
And then, even if he catches Eddie Irvine, he's got to try and force the Irishman into an error. And this, as I said earlier on, is Eddie Irvine's 90th Grand Prix. He can see a second win of 1999 in his grasp at the time when Ferrari need it most, when team leader Michael Schumacher, who Eddie Irvine always freely acknowledges is the best driver in the world, watching this race. If Irvine can win for Ferrari, all the harsh, unpleasant things that the Italian press and the German press has been saying about the things that Eddie Irvine has been saying since Silverstone about David Coulthard, about Schumacher and about everything else will be forgotten in a gigantic wave of Irvine adulation, where with Frentzen in 4th place, 24 seconds behind Mika Hakkinen, he's being caught very slowly by Wurz at the moment.
Clear air there. Coulthard half a second faster than Irvine, so gap back down to 1.8 seconds.
Wow, and it's lap 64. That is Alexander Wurz. He's 6 seconds in 5th place ahead of Pedro Diniz. And Pedro Diniz, who has already scored 2 6th places this year for his Sauber team, that's one more than Jean Alesi, looks as though he's going to get another World Championship points. He's 10th equal in the championship at the present moment, and he richly deserves it. A driver who was maligned in the past and is in fact a very, very good Grand Prix driver. Not as good obviously as the Irvines, Coulthards, Schumachers and Hakkinens, but he's more than holding his end up in Austria. And we're on lap 64 now, and the first 2 sectors of that lap, the times were absolutely identical to 1/10 of a second between Eddie Irvine and Coulthard, and they're both quicker on this lap than Mika Hakkinen is. So are things settling down? Well, they are at the moment, but Irvine has got this constant traffic situation, this constant traffic problem, and if he cuts through it, then that same problem faces David Coulthard. And the next target for Irvine is Fisichella. You just saw the blue Benetton go out of picture there in 7th position, and he's got race leader. There's Fisichella 7th, Irvine the leader, David Coulthard in 2nd place. And it's going to depend now on whether Fisichella moves over.
Oh, somebody's locked a wheel. Was that Irvine? Coulthard coming into some blue smoke. It must have been Irvine's, but then locked his own wheel as well. Took 0.3 of a second out of Irvine in the first section of this lap. So this is the same duel we saw at the British Grand Prix, except in reverse.
And Hakkinen is going slower now, a second slower on that lap than Irvine and Coulthard. That's a replay that you're looking at. This is a magnificent scrap between the Ferrari of Irvine, the McLaren of David Coulthard. There they are, getting closer and closer as the traffic helps. And over the line, the gap was 1.8 seconds. This is a new lap and that is
Zonta.
Zonta. So that is both the BARs out of the race. They've only had 2 finishes out of 18 starts. James Allen, news?
Yes, I'm down in the Ferrari garage, just speaking to one of my friends down here. I said, you at Ferrari really believe in Eddie Irvine, don't you? And he said, yeah, we really believe in him. But I'll tell you something, he said, the brakes in this race are at the absolute limit. Don't forget, Irvine started out with a very, very high fuel load, and you can see not just Ferrari, but McLaren too. The brakes absolutely at the end of their tether.
Yeah, and Eddie Irvine getting closer and closer to the rear of Giancarlo Fisichella's Benetton in 7th place. If he can get past Fisichella, it's going to help him before David Coulthard closes right up on him. It's going to help the Ferrari driver immensely. This is lap 66.
Yes, Coulthard's taken 2/10 early in this lap, but at that rate, he's going to catch Irvine just out on the last lap, so he's got to find some more time from somewhere, and Irvine apparently not buckling at all under the pressure.
I can tell you that Benetton are going to be mighty pleased with this race. Yet again, in the race, they've come good. Wurz has been consistently beaten by Fisichella, and through goes Irvine. Now that could decide the race, because Irvine has got ahead of Fisichella, and David Coulthard in 2nd position, the right hand of the 3 cars that you're looking at, has yet to do so. Here's a replay.
Yes, Fisichella lifting off completely. Irvine ducking out of the slipstream, using his slipstream, and then just charging past. And good of Fisichella there, because Irvine was able to rejoin the normal racing line. And obviously Fisichella did the same thing for Coulthard at turn 2 while we were seeing that replay. So really, it's still status quo. He's a 10th up, Coulthard a 10th up again on this first section, the longest section of the race. And then in the 2nd and 3rd, they tend to be virtually identical, these 2 drivers.
4 laps to go at the end of this one. 4 2.7-mile laps of the Austrian A1 ring.
Yes, Coulthard needs to catch and pass Irvine if he wants to minimise the heavy conversation that he's going to have, I'm sure, with the bosses for tapping off Häkkinen on the first lap of the race.
And Häkkinen is still in 3rd place, but you can forget about Häkkinen, provided Irvine and Coulthard finish this race. And look how close it is now. For the first time, Coulthard is less than a second behind Eddie Irvine. In fact, he's right with him.
Yes, 0.6 there, and Coulthard did his fastest final sector of the race so far on that lap, and that's what made the difference. He's found time in the last section 2 now on Eddie, and homing in on him. Eddie now is going to see the McLaren for real, and Häkkinen, I don't think he's got no chance of catching Coulthard in 2nd, so I think he's just cruising for his 3rd.
I think Mika Häkkinen has just said, right, there's no way I'm going to catch the Ferrari and the McLaren. They may take each other off and I could win this race, but even if I don't, I'm on 4 World Championship points for finishing in 3rd position. And that would, of course, increase his lead over Michael Schumacher. Not that that matters, but it's going to be mine. I'm trying to work things. You talk a bit and I'll work something out in my mind.
Coulthard now is close enough to be getting in the turbulent air off the back of the Ferrari, so any advantage he had he's about to lose, I suspect. Now it's going to be really hard to move in on that Ferrari. He's just got to somehow force him, if he's going to pass him, force him into running wide. But Eddie Irvine is pretty strong in the head, and I don't think he's about to give this one up too easy. There it is, that's the information. Irvine's now getting 0.6. He doesn't really need that, because he can see for himself. But their lap times last time round, virtually identical.
Well, unless I'm very much mistaken, if they finish where they are now, Eddie Irvine will close the World Championship lead of Mika Häkkinen down from 8 points to 2 points, because Irvine is on a potential 10 points and Mika Häkkinen is on a potential 4 points. I use the word potential because we're on lap 69 and this race has still got laps to run. Not many in a 71-lap race, but anything can happen. Irvine leads, lap 69. Coulthard right behind him. There is the proof. Häkkinen is 20 seconds down the road. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is catching Häkkinen, but he's 25 seconds behind him. Wurz is 5th in the Benetton. Deniz is in 6th place in the Sauber. Fisichella is 7th and is going to stay there. He won't catch Deniz unless the Brazilian has trouble. Jarno Trulli is 8th. Damon Hill is going to finish in the top 10. He's going to finish 9th if he stays where he is. Mika Salo looks like finishing his first race for Ferrari in 10th position, which is where he is now, ahead of Panis, Genet, Badoa, Herbert and Zonta. Herbert's still running, a very worried-looking Ron Dennis, and David Coulthard's just put up his fastest lap of the race, and he's close, as you can see, right up on the gearbox of Eddie Irvine on lap 70. There's only one lap to go at the end of this one.
And Irvine locks his wheel. He's going to run a little bit wide, nothing desperate, but enough to give Coulthard a sniff, that's for sure. So Irvine lost a couple of tenths going in there. You can tell he's on the ragged edge. This is going to be a very exciting last lap.
It sure is, but if Eddie Irvine, he does it again, he knows the pressure's on him.
That's the information Coulthard needs. He knows if he gets a sniff, he can outbrake Eddie Irvine. He's struggling. His front tyres must be getting pretty worn. He's struggling to slow down, but can Coulthard get near enough? Doesn't look like it from there, does it?
No, they're round the Lauda curve. They're round the Gerhard Berger curve, and out goes Fisichella. That's Fisichella out in the Benetton. That will let Jarno Trulli up into 7th position. The engine goes on Fisichella's Benetton, and he looks ruefully at the Supertech lump behind him as Eddie Irvine starts his last lap of the Austrian Grand Prix in a magnificent lead from David Coulthard. Can he hang on for this last 2.7 miles?
No, unless he makes a very bad mistake. Coulthard's not near enough to really make Eddie move off line to defend. So I think when David had a stab on the last lap, he actually dropped back a little bit. He did, he lost a tenth of a second. So I think Irvine has just got to be calm now the last few corners. There's a yellow flag down there. That helps Irvine, because that's another place where Coulthard cannot overtake. But Coulthard's not near enough. Look at the black smoke pouring off those front brakes. But there seems to be enough meat on them, and very little braking to be done now till the end of the lap. So if he has got any kind of braking problem, then it's not going to show up.
Well, Irvine has already had a first, a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth and a sixth in this race. He's coming up to the last two corners now. He's got a tail ender in front of him, but it looks very much as though it's going to be his second win of the year, but not if David Coulthard can do anything about it in the closing stages of this race. This is the last corner, and Eddie Irvine wins brilliantly, the Austrian Grand Prix. Well done, Eddie Irvine. Ferrari continue to lead the Constructors' Championship, and Eddie Irvine has closed to within 2 points of Mika Häkkinen for the Drivers' Championship lead. With a truly inspired drivers, Häkkinen finishes in 3rd position. Martin, what a race.
It was a cracking race, something flying around there. I think somebody throwing a firework over the fence, but well, Eddie Irvine's answered his critics. Didn't look very sparkling in qualifying, but that race strategy, and he made it stick. He drove the mid part of the race when it was absolutely crucial. He drove it very fast. Coulthard not fast enough, and that's why Irvine had track position. I think Coulthard had the faster car at the end, but Irvine was not going to buckle under that pressure. Frentzen goes over the line for 4th place, hand out of the window, more points for Jordan, and Wirtz on his home track is going to come in for 2 points in the Benetton. We haven't seen or heard much of him, but not a bad run for him actually, although it's more down to attrition I think than sparkling speed.
That's his best finish of the year. Alexander Wirtz finished 6th in Monaco, and he goes one better in his home country. But Eddie Irvine will be on a gigantic high, and rightly so. And I would love to read the Italian newspapers and the German newspapers tomorrow. They'll be full of praise for the man that they were condemning in the most vicious terms in today's papers. Eddie Irvine has proved them wrong. He's shown that Michael Schumacher is not the only man who could win for Ferrari. Irvine had already done it in Australia, but he had Michael Schumacher to contend with in that race. And sure enough, Häkkinen continues to lead the World Championship, but by only 2 points from Eddie Irvine. Michael Schumacher, of course, is still in 3rd position, but only 3 points behind him is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who shows every sign to move into 3rd position in the World Championship, just as Jordan are in 3rd position in the Constructors' Championship. Coulthard is in 5th position, thanks to his... And Eddie Irvine, look at him! Who says that Eddie Irvine doesn't show any emotion? He's a very pragmatic chap, and he will probably be very straightforward in the drivers' conference. But Ross Brawn there in the glasses comes up behind him to say, well done. David Coulthard, a genuine sportsman, gives him a pat on the back to congratulate him. Mika Häkkinen walks into the garage, and Ross Brawn and Eddie Irvine, with the car, have won that race together.
Yes, they really did win the race. I remember earlier on in the year when he won in Melbourne, both McLarens and Michael Schumacher were out, and it was difficult to judge that win. But this one, he clearly won by himself on pace.
I make no bones about it, when Eddie Irvine qualified a second slower than Häkkinen, and then he went a second slower this morning. I didn't think he would be able to do this. It's been an absolutely inspired drive. But that decision, I think, of Ross Brawn's to bring him in as late as he did, what was it, the 45th lap, I think it was. Just ironically, let me establish that Johnny Herbert has just done, if it's not the fastest lap of the race, it's Johnny nearly the fastest lap of the race. Mika Häkkinen's done the fastest lap in 1 minute 12.1, and Johnny Herbert is only a few tenths quicker than that. In the closing stages, using the race as a test track, Johnny Herbert has gone round in 1 minute 12.6. If he could get reliability, he will be there. But Irvine had reliability, so did Coulthard, so did Häkkinen. As Martin has said, I would not like to be David Coulthard when he gets back to the motorhome. And Eddie Irvine, Mika Häkkinen, David Coulthard come out onto the podium. Let's see the body language and the faces of Coulthard and Häkkinen. There is Eddie Irvine. Oh, great, great, great race. And they know it in Austria. What thoughts are going through the minds of David Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen? One or other of them might have won the Austrian Grand Prix had they not had that coming together. But that is an irrelevant statement. Eddie Irvine did win it in the finest possible style. The longest national anthem in the world, the Italian national anthem for Ferrari, of course, and for Eddie Irvine. And Ferrari continue to lead the Constructors' Championship by 2 points now from McLaren. Jordan have increased their gap over Williams. Jordan in third place, Williams in fourth. Benetton have closed up on Williams. They're in fifth place, Benetton, and the Stewart team are sixth. And Ross Brawn has just taken the winning Constructors' Trophy from Mrs. Waltraud-Klasnik, who is the governor of Styria.
And Coulthard receiving the second place pop there, but Ross Brawn up on the podium. I think that's Ferrari acknowledging his brilliant strategies that seems to keep pulling something out of the bag. Häkkinen, a slightly grumpy looking Häkkinen, and understandably so, I think, taking third place.
But not taking the Drivers' Championship further away, as he had obviously hoped to do, as the champagne sprays in Austria, and we have more news from James Allen.
Yes, I'm actually standing down here. Ron Dennis is just looking at the computer screen. He has said he'll have a word with us. I'll just try and interrupt him. Ron, you said you have a quick word for us. First of all, your feelings on the incident on the first lap?
Well, we run the cars equally, and there's a part of motor racing. If you let them race each other, these things are going to happen. Obviously wasn't deliberate, probably cost us the race win, but I'm not actually angry about it. It's, you know, we're here to win, and we've got two drivers capable of that. A little disappointed with the result, but that's because I like to win.
You'll be back, Ron, we know that. Thanks.
If you say so, Ron, we'll believe you, but he won't be very pleased. A wonderful victory for Eddie Irvine and Ferrari.
Thank you very much indeed, Murray. Thanks to Martin Brundle as well. A magnificent Austrian Grand Prix. We'll be hearing from the drivers in a few minutes' time. Rejoin us then.
Congratulations, gentlemen, the top three drivers in the Austrian Grand Prix 1999. Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen. Eddie Irvine, you've beaten both the McLarens, which after yesterday's qualifying and today's warm-up seemed unlikely. Are you as surprised as the rest of us?
I'm surprised to have beaten them, yeah, but at the same time I knew we weren't a second off them yesterday, and I knew we would be closer. You know, I reckon really yesterday we were about half a second off. And today, normally in a race we go better, and I thought, you know, if we get the strategy right, we can do the job.
You won the race in the extra laps you were out on your first stint with some absolutely demon laps. Did you just go as fast as you could, or did you have a target of time to gain?
No, I drove around as slowly as I could, you know, well within the limits of the car, just to make sure it got the... No, of course, that's the time you got to make the lap times, and I'd actually been saving fuel at the start of the race, and I was hoping it wasn't going to break down, because at that stage I was going very slowly, and I was behind Barrichello, and the Italian press, if I had broken down then, would have murdered me. But you know, I just had to save fuel and try and save the brakes, and that's what I was doing. And then I started pushing and pushing. Then when Barrichello went in, that's when I really put the hammer down, and that's what got us ahead of DC. Now, towards the end, David was closing right up on you, and we saw some smoke in the TV pictures. Was there a problem? Probably coming from my brain. It was it was overloading with, you know, because with problems with the brakes, and the car was just understeering like a pig, really, on the second set of tires, and I was just struggling to do lap times, and then it started to get a bit better. But we still had the brake problems, so I had to ease off, and DC caught me a bit too quick, so then I had to start pushing down and just forget about the brakes. Thanks, Eddie. David, congratulations on second place, but a controversial first lap. Perhaps you could talk us through it.
Well, obviously this is my nightmare scenario. Not only have I taken my teammate off at the start, I've you know, finished second to a Ferrari. So obviously I'm very sorry for running into Mika, but I misjudged that corner, and then the rest of the race was just a case, I guess, of Eddie being quicker on those last few laps after the stop.
Did you know Eddie was quicker then? Was the team telling you to go faster, and were you just constrained by weight or something?
Well, I knew just before my stop that I was starting to lose a little bit of time in traffic, and I lost, I think, 2.5 seconds behind Zanardi driving slowly around the middle of turn 6, and I had to run wide offline there. I nearly went off the circuit, so it just came at the wrong time, and obviously that was crucial time for staying in front of Eddie.
And in those last few laps you closed up, did you think you had a realistic chance of passing if you had got close enough?
You've got to believe there's always going to be a way through somewhere. If you can get there, and if someone makes a mistake, then there's always a chance of getting through.
Dave, thank you. Mika, a fantastic drive from very disappointing circumstances. You're dead last, you come third. Well done, talk us through it.
Well, you don't really expect me to tell from the start to finish, you know, otherwise we need a couple-hour program, but you know, it was after all, the end of the day result was acceptable, you know, like I said before the race, to come here to score points was important, and we did that. whatever happens in the first corner, second corner, that's not now important at the moment in this situation. But you know, generally overtaking again other cars, racing against other drivers was again very enjoyable. I think the organization here in Austria did a good job in terms of blue flags, so it made the racing extremely interesting for me.
Now, Mickey, you say the second corner doesn't matter, but do you feel you've lost 6 points or gained 4?
It matters, of course, but there's no point to now to start explaining it.
Mickey, thank you. Eddie, you're now just 2 points behind Mickey in the World Championship, and obviously established yourself as a very credible Ferrari team leader. Going on to Hockenheim, is low downforce something that's going to suit the Ferrari?
Well, I think we did a test at Monza, and we made very, very big steps forward there. You know, very surprised how much time we found. So Hockenheim, you know, is a different circuit from Monza, but these guys, we know they're going to be quick wherever they go. But as you've seen today, we can beat them even though they're that little bit quicker.
Thank you, gentlemen. And now, Mikko, a word in Finnish, please.
Oikeastaan tekisi mieli antaa kommenttia aika lyhkäisesti, eli et ihan pipariksi meni. Et siitä mihin tarkoitus oli, niin kuin oli tarkoitus hakea ne maksimaaliset pointsit täältä näin, ja tämä kolmas sijoitus on todellinen pettymys tietysti. Mutta niin tilanne voisi olla paljon pahempi, kun voisi olla se jossakin tuolla hiekassa jäänyt jumi sinne, niin eikä olisi saanut mitään pisteitä, joten mä oon ihan tyytyväinen olla kolmas. Et tietysti tässä on niinku hieman niinku keskusteltavaa vielä niinku erään henkilön kanssa, voitte kuvitella, mutta se ei tule niinku muuttamaan tilannetta miksikään. Elämä jatkuu ja työ jatkuu ja tässä on jaksettava ja kestettävä ja oltava erittäin keskittynyt loppukauteen. Jokainen piste on tärkeä, niin kuin nähtiin jo viime vuonna, eli jatketaan. Kiitos.
Thank you, everyone. Congratulations.